Hey, it's Kevin DeWitt here. Welcome to another plugin knowledge session. This week we're having a look at another component from iZotope Neutron. This time we're going to have a look at the Exciter section of it. So if you haven't experienced exciters before, basically they depending on the plugin do different things, but generally they add some sort of distortion type effect or some sort of harmonics, etc., that sort of thing, to make an audio sound larger than life, a bit more energetic, a bit brighter, a bit more exciting, I guess, if you want to find a word for it, hence the word exciter. There's lots of different types, but obviously iZotope have added one into their Neutron suite. We've gone through lots of other components and the overview of that in previous plugin knowledge sessions, but this one we're going to concentrate on the exciter. So let's get into it. Okay, so like all the other ones, we've got it in a module here that we can move and place anywhere we like in the chain. We can obviously turn it on, turn it off. We've got presets. We can blend in a certain amount or the full amount, and like all their other ones, it is a multi-band or single band. How many, up to 3 bands you can have here. All right, so looking at the top here, we've got help function, we've got reset, we've got learn. Now, if you've watched any of the other ones, you'll know that the learn function works only when you're running in multiband, and it's intelligently determines the crossover points based on the audio source. So we'll go through that to show you, but it works the same as in any other of these components here. And then we have 3 modes here. They're referred to as pre-emphasis modes. So reading the description, these modes allow you to weight the saturation in or away from different areas of the frequency spectrum. Okay, so full setting offers a gentle low-mid frequency bump. Defined offers a gentle high-mid frequency bump. And clear offers a gentle low-mid frequency attenuation. So we will flick between those to see what that actually does to our sound. So we've got here on this graph, you can see there's a little shelf symbol here. So we can actually enable that, and you can't do a boost, but you can attenuate a shelf. So I guess if you're getting any sort of top end hiss or something like that, you can wind it off, and that gets applied to the wet signal. So if you're doing any sort of blending, then it doesn't get applied to the dry, only to the wet. So you could make your exciter duller if you wish with that, or you can turn it back off or put it back to 0. So all the bands here, we've got 3 bands. If we wish, at the moment it's set to single band only. You'll see the others are turned off. They're all identical, but you can obviously set each one independently. So we've got our on-off button here. We've got a bypass and a solo. We've got our drive, so that's going to be the amount of excitement we apply. We've got a blend here, so we can blend between where it's now 100% wet to anywhere in between. So that's fully dry, no exciter placed, or you could blend a bit in, and you can obviously do that on each band. Then we have this little square here, which is like an XY sort of pad here. And this is where we go into our different types of excitement. So we've got 4 settings here: tape, retro, warm, and tube. And I guess to basically read from the manual, because it's just as easy, we've got tube, which characterized by a clear tonal excitation that emphasizes dynamics and transient attacks and tends to sound less harsh than tape or retro. Warm is similar to tube, but sounds gentler than tube, as it only generates quickly decaying even harmonics. Tape is supposed to be a bright sounding array of odd harmonics, typically of the saturation imparted by a magnetic tape machine, but without the crosstalk, hiss, wow, and flutter that might ruin your mix. And retro is an edgier, more bitey algorithm inspired by transistor characteristics, including a slowly decaying row of odd harmonics. And it suggests if you like transistor-based fuzz behind the signature sound of the Black Keys and a great many records by the Beatles, you'll dig this option. And being an XY pad, you are not locked into all the way. You can edge towards certain points. You can go in between. You can hedge your bets over here, lower, over there. So you're going to get different sounds wherever you go here. So let's start with it bypassed. So we bypass it there and we have a song, and this is what we've got. So now if we bring it in without anything being set, just its default settings. Nothing really happening there because we've obviously got no drive on. So let's bring the drive in with it in the middle. So you can hear how an exciter can totally ruin your mix if you don't do it right here. So to me, that obviously sounds quite horrible on this song, but we haven't really set anything up yet. So we've only just applied a tiny bit. We've got a full blend, which obviously you might not want to do a full blend. And we're smack in the middle. So let's start by flicking between these three here. Define seems to suit a little bit better because it's concentrating on the high mid. But we'll leave it at full and let's just have a listen to the shelf here. So obviously because we've got this fully wet and this is applied to the wet, we are affecting the entire song with this shelf. But if we were to blend, all right, so let's move the control around and try a few different placements. Just exaggerate it so it's pretty obvious what you're hearing. So you can hear the different types of distortion there. So obviously exaggerating it gives you a good idea of the tone, but you're not going to obviously leave it there. So let's bring in some multiband here, and let's actually get it to do the learn function. Okay, so as soon as the light goes out, we know it's set. So it's determined 194 Hertz and 5.82K to be the breaks, the crossovers here. So now you can start to get more impact out of this. So we can decide on each type of this. So we could say, oh, let's concentrate on the low end first. That's bypassed. I think warm sounds better if I was going to do anything. But in this case, you might even say, look, I'm just going to even leave that off and bypass that one altogether. Now, if you remember, if you've seen any of the other ones, if you remember how the multiband works here, the reason you might bypass a section here as opposed to just turning it off is that bypass still leaves it there. So it basically says that, okay, this mid one here is still going to be at a crossover 200 or 194 to 5.82. If I was to actually turn this off instead of just bypassing it, then what happens is it disappears and suddenly the mid-range now covers all of the bottom as well. So we're not bypassing the bottom anymore. If we bring it back in, we can have the low end bypassed and unaffected by keeping it turned on, but in bypass mode. But in this case, let's just bring it in, just for the sake of bringing it in. So this is what we got now. So let's have a listen to the mid-range. So let's say we want a bit of tape on this one. Okay, so that's the mid-range. Let's have a listen to the top end. Just for fun, let's go with a different one again and go with retro. All right, let's bring them all in and let's bypass every single one of them first, and I'll bring them each one at a time. So as I stated, you might say, okay, I'm going to leave the low end out. You might even want to leave the mid-range out. And maybe we just want to do something with this top end here. So you can hear there, it definitely brings up a bit of the top end, adds a bit more sort of excitement at that sort of range there, and changes the character of the sound. So obviously with the blend control here, the other thing you can do is just absolutely slam it and then blend a tiny bit in. So let's say we want to get a bit more distortion and a bit more emphasis in this mid-range here. So we go really extreme. And then if we unsolo it, bring it all the way down, and then we just bring it in. So that's what it does there. So for some reason, the way we're getting this to work, I hear it sort of bringing out the top end, but every time I apply distortion to the mid-range there, it actually sort of sinks it back into the mix and drops away a bit. So we lose a bit of impact there as opposed to adding impact, which is very interesting. So let's have a look at some of the presets just quickly. Let's just pick something. Let's go with tube thickness. So we have a look at the tube thickness here. They've gone with 2 bands, and obviously both of these, they've gone straight over to full tube. Fairly heavy with the drive, fairly heavy with the mix. So start with, I'll bypass them. So that's quite a lot of distortion on there. Transistor edge. We got 3 bands all over on retro, and you can see the levels there. They're pretty heavy-handed with the top end. Again, let's bypass and bring it in. Funnily enough, I'm liking what it's doing on the top end more than I like what it does on everything else. But obviously it depends on the song and the style and what you're doing with it. Obviously these can also be applied directly on instruments, as you can see by some of the presets here, bass distortion, dirt on the roads, all that sort of stuff. So, we don't have to place this on an entire song. That's just where I've put it at the moment. But obviously you can put it on the entire song as well. Okay, so there you go. There's the Exciter section of iZotope Neutron. As you can hear, it can be used for adding some good character, etc. to your mix, but it can also destroy it entirely. And this is one of those plugins, especially with exciters, that it pays to constantly be bypassing and unbypassing and letting your ears settle, because what happens with exciters is that your ears adjust, and suddenly what you thought was exciting and what you made were drastic changes, your ears will adapt to that, and suddenly you'll think, okay, I could probably add some more, and you keep adding more. And then you'll go away from your mix for a day, come back, and you'll listen to it, and you'll wonder what the heck you were doing, because it sounds horrible, very high pitched, totally over the top, distortion, whatever else. So be very careful when using exciters. You want to be subtle, and you want to constantly refresh your ears by bypassing the plugin, letting your ears adjust back to the original sound, then bring it in again and see what you think, because you might find that you've gone too heavy and it's too harsh and you need to back it off. And you just need to keep going backwards and forwards that, because, as I said, using an exciter, you can keep going up and up and up as your ears keep adapting to that new sound. Right, so if you've got Neutron, check it out, apply it to your mix, see where you can fit it in, where you think it works appropriately. Hopefully it's been helpful. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.